Hey everyone, to a place where the Nile River floods predictably each year, where the sun rises over sand and stone, where civilization itself is being shaped by human hands. We're going to ancient Egypt, but we're not visiting the pyramids or the pharaoh's tombs. We're not exploring grand temples or decoding hieroglyphs. Instead, we're going to spend time in a much quieter place, a bakery, a simple mud brick building in a village along the Nile around 2500 BCE during the Old Kingdom. We're going to learn how bread was made, every single step, from grain to loaf, the slow, methodical process that happened every single day in thousands of homes and bakeries across ancient Egypt. Before we begin, if you enjoy this kind of content, you're welcome to like the video and subscribe, but only if it genuinely helps you relax. No pressure. And I'd love to know in the comments, where are you watching from? What time is it where you are? Now, get comfortable. Maybe adjust your pillow. Turn down the lights. Perhaps turn on a fan for some gentle background noise. We're going to take our time tonight. There's no hurry. Just let yourself drift with the rhythm of ancient bread making. Imagine the sound of stone grinding against stone, the smell of fermenting dough, the warmth of a clay oven on a cool morning, the satisfaction of honest, necessary work. Let's begin. The day begins before sunrise. It always does. You wait to the sound of the night guard changing shifts in the street outside. Their voices are quiet, respectful of those still sleeping. But you're already awake. Your body knows the rhythm. Years of waking before dawn have trained you. You're a baker in ancient Egypt, not a slave, but not wealthy either. A skilled craftsman, working in a small bakery attached to a noble's household. You make bread for the noble's family, their servants, and you're allowed to sell extra loaves in the market. It's a good life. Steady, purposeful. You rise from your sleeping mat, woven reeds laid on a raised mud brick platform that keeps you off the cool floor. Your wife still sleeps beside you, her breathing soft and even. Your two children sleep in the next room. You move quietly, not wanting to wake them yet. The morning is yours alone for a little while. You splash water on your face from a ceramic bowl. The water is cool, almost cold. It sharpens your mind, brings you fully into wakefulness. You dress simply, a linen kilt, pleated and tied at the waist. In cooler months, you might add a linen shirt, but it's summer now, the season of Shomu, when the Nile is at its lowest and the heat builds day by day. Linen sandals for your feet. You'll remove these once you begin working. Flour and dough stick to sandals, making them slippery and uncomfortable. You step outside into the pre-dawn darkness. The village is quiet. A few oil lamps flicker in windows, other early risers, other workers beginning their days. The air is cool, carrying the scent of the river, of damp earth, of smoke from banked fires. Above, the stars are still brilliant. You know them well. The constellation the Greeks will later call Orion, you know it as Sar, the soul of Osiris. The bright star Sirius Sopdet to you, which heralds the annual flood. The sky is beginning to pale in the east. Dawn is perhaps an hour away. You walk the short distance to the bakery. It's a separate building from your home, built of sun-dried mud bricks with a flat roof. Inside, it's divided into sections: the grinding room, the mixing area, the ovens, and the storage room for grain and finished bread. You push open the wooden door. The interior is dark, but you know every inch of this space. You've worked here since you were a boy, apprentice to the previous baker, your wife's father. You light an oil lamp, a simple clay saucer filled with sesame oil, with a twisted flax wick floating in it. The small flame pushes back the darkness just enough to see. The bakery smells of grain and yeast and smoke. Old smells, good smells. the scent of work and sustenance. You check the ovens first. You banked them last night before leaving, covered the coals with ash to preserve them through the night. Now you carefully brush aside the ash, exposing the red embers beneath. They've survived the night. Good. You add a few pieces of dried acacia wood, placing them carefully on the embers. Within moments, they begin to smoke, then catch. Small flames lick upward. The ovens are cylindrical structures made of clay, about waist high, with an opening at the bottom for fuel and at the top for inserting bread. You have 3 of them, lined up along one wall. Each can bake several loaves at once. But the ovens won't be ready for hours yet. First, there's grain to grind, flour to sift, dough to mix. The bread that will bake this afternoon begins now, in the darkness before dawn. You walk to the storage room and open one of the large ceramic jars that line the wall. Inside, grain, emmer wheat. To be specific, the primary grain of ancient Egypt. The grain is hard, golden brown, with a slightly nutty smell. You scoop some into a large ceramic bowl, carrying it to the grinding room. This room contains your most important tools, the grinding stones. You have several set saddle querns, they're called, though you don't use that term. To you, they're simply the stones. Each set consists of 2 parts. A large flat base stone, slightly concave from years of use, and a smaller, handheld grinding stone, rounded to fit comfortably in both hands. The stones are made of granite, brought from quarries far to the south. They're valuable, well-maintained, passed down through generations of bakers. You position yourself on your knees before one of the base stones. The floor here is worn smooth from generations of kneeling in this exact spot. You pour some grain onto the base stone, not too much, perhaps a cup's worth. You'll grind in batches, refilling as you go. You pick up the hand stone. It's heavy, smooth, warm somehow, even though the morning is cool. The weight of it is familiar, comforting. You begin to grind. The motion is simple but requires rhythm. You push the hand stone forward across the grain, applying steady downward pressure. The grain cracks and crushes between the 2 stones. Then you pull the hand stone back toward yourself, gathering more grain under it. Push forward, pull back, push forward, pull back. The sound is rhythmic, a low, grinding susurration. Stone against stone, grain against grain. Push forward, pull back. Your arms remember this motion. Your shoulders, your back, your wrists, they all know what to do. After years of grinding grain, the movement is almost automatic. Push forward, pull back. The grain gradually breaks down, first into coarse pieces, like small pebbles, then into smaller granules, then into something approaching flour. But it takes time, lots of time. This is perhaps the most labour-intensive part of bread making in ancient Egypt. There are no mills, no mechanical assistance, just human strength and patience, applied steadily, for hours. Push forward, pull back, push forward, pull back. As you work, the sky outside slowly brightens. The pre-dawn grey gives way to the first hints of pink and gold. Through the small, high windows of the bakery, you can see the light changing. Birds begin their morning songs. The village is waking around you. But you continue grinding. The rhythm doesn't change. Push forward, pull back. Your mind wanders pleasantly as your body performs the familiar work. You think about the bread you'll make today. The noble's household will need 20 loaves for their daily bread ration. The servants will need another 30, and you hope to make 20 more for the market. 70 loaves total, a good day's work. But first, more grinding. You pause to add more grain to the stone. Your first batch has been ground fairly fine, not perfectly smooth like the flour the Greeks will make centuries from now, but fine enough. You brush the flour into a ceramic bowl and add fresh grain. And begin again. Push forward. Pull back. Push forward. Pull back. This is the foundation of civilization. This simple, repetitive work. Grain into flour, flour into bread, bread into life. In ancient Egypt, bread is everything. It's the primary food, the main source of calories. It's also currency. Workers are often paid in bread and beer. It's an offering to the gods. It's prosperity, sustenance, survival. And it all begins here, with your hands and the stones. Push forward, pull back, push forward, pull back. The rhythm is meditative, almost hypnotic. The sound of grinding grain fills the bakery, joins with the crackling of the fire in the ovens, creates a gentle symphony of work beginning. By the time the sun has fully risen, you've ground enough flour for the first batch of dough, perhaps 10 or 12 pounds of flour, enough for about 20 loaves. Your arms are warm from the work, not tired yet, but awakened. Your shoulders feel loose, ready for the day. You stand, stretching slightly. Your knees are stiff from kneeling, but this is normal. This is the baker's posture, the baker's price for fresh bread. You carry the bowl of flour to the next room, where the real magic will happen. The transformation of flour into dough, the mystery of yeast, the ancient art of bread making. In the mixing room, you have several large ceramic vessels. One of them is special. It holds your starter, the living culture of yeast that will make your bread rise. Ancient Egyptians don't understand yeast the way modern bakers do. You don't know about microscopic organisms, about fermentation chemistry, about carbon dioxide production. But you understand, in a practical way, that something magical happens when you mix flour and water and leave it to sit. It begins to bubble, to smell sour and yeasty. And when you add this mixture to your bread dough, the bread becomes lighter, airier, and better. Your starter has been alive for years, perhaps decades. You feed it regularly every day. You add a little flour and water. It consumes this food and continues to live, to bubble, to maintain its strength. The starter lives in a covered jar, kept in a cool corner of the bakery where the temperature stays relatively constant. You lift the lid and peer inside. The surface is bubbly, active, good. The starter is healthy and vigorous. You can smell it, a pleasant, slightly sour, yeasty aroma. Not unpleasant, alive. Using a wooden spoon, you scoop out about a cup of starter and place it in a large mixing bowl. Then you add fresh flour and water to the starter jar, feeding it for tomorrow's baking. The starter you've removed will become today's bread. You add flour to the mixing bowl, about half of what you've ground this morning. Then water. The water comes from large ceramic jars that you filled yesterday from the community well. It's clean, clear Nile water, the lifeblood of Egypt. You pour the water slowly, watching how it mixes with the flour and starter. The proportions are not precise. There are no measuring cups, no standardized amounts. You judge by eye, by feel, by experience. You know when the mixture looks right, when it has the proper consistency. Too much water, and the dough will be sticky, difficult to shape. Too little, and it will be dry, dense, heavy. You add the water gradually, mixing with your hands as you go. The flour begins to absorb the water. The dry, powdery texture becomes something wetter, stickier. The starter distributes throughout the mixture, bringing with it the living yeast. You mix with your hands, feeling the dough begin to form. It's rough at first, shaggy, not yet cohesive. You add a little more water, a little more flour. You're seeking that perfect balance. Your hands work the mixture, pressing and folding, bringing the wet and dry parts together. Slowly, gradually, it transforms from separate ingredients into a unified mass, into dough. The texture changes under your hands. What was loose and crumbly becomes smooth and elastic. You can feel when it's right. The dough has a particular feel, slightly sticky, but not wet. Soft, but with structure. Alive. This is one of the mysteries of bread making. How simple ingredients, grain, water, yeast, become something greater than their parts. Once the dough is mixed, you turn it out onto your work surface, a large, flat stone set into a mud brick table at waist height. You sprinkle a little flour on the stone to prevent sticking. And then you knead. Kneading is perhaps the most important step in bread making. It's how you develop the gluten, though you don't know to call it that. You only know that working the dough makes it stronger, smoother, better. The motion is rhythmic, like grinding grain, but different. More active, more forceful. You push the dough away from yourself with the heels of your hands, stretching it. Then you fold it back over itself. Quarter turn. Push. Fold. Turn. Push. Fold. Again and again and again. Push. Fold. Turn. Push. Fold. Turn. The dough resists at first. It's stiff, reluctant, but as you continue kneading, it begins to change. It becomes smoother, more elastic. When you push it, it springs back slightly. You can feel the structure developing under your hands. The dough is coming alive. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. Your arms are working now. Kneading is physical labor. You can feel your muscles engaging shoulders, forearms, wrists, even your back and legs as you shift your weight with each push. But it's good work. Satisfying work. You can feel the dough improving with each repetition. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. The rhythm is steady, almost musical. Your breathing synchronizes with the motion. Breathe in on the push. Breathe out on the fold. The bakery is warm now. The morning sun streams through the high windows. The ovens radiate heat from their growing fires. You can feel sweat beginning to form on your forehead, your arms. The work is warming you. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. After perhaps 15 or 20 minutes of steady kneading, the dough is ready. You can tell by feel. It's smooth, elastic, slightly glossy. When you poke it with a finger, the indentation slowly fills back in. This is good dough. Strong dough. It will make good bread. You form it into a ball and place it in a large ceramic bowl. You cover the bowl with a damp linen cloth. This keeps the surface of the dough from drying out while it rises. Now comes the waiting, the rising, the fermentation. You set the bowl in a warm spot near the ovens. The heat will encourage the yeast to work, producing the gases that will make the dough expand. This will take several hours. In the meantime, there's more grinding to do, more dough to mix. Because you're making 70 loaves today, this first batch is only the beginning. You return to the grinding room and kneel before the stones once more. You add grain, pick up the hand stone, begin the rhythm again, push forward, pull back, push forward, pull back. The morning progresses, the sun climbs higher, the heat builds. You grind grain, batch after batch after batch. Your wife arrives around mid-morning, bringing your 2 children. The older one, a boy of 12, is learning the trade. He takes a position at one of the other grinding stones and begins working alongside you. His rhythm is not yet smooth. He's still learning, but he's strong and willing, and he improves every day. You work together in companionable silence, father and son, baker and apprentice. The sound of 2 sets of stones grinding fills the room. Push forward, pull back, push forward, pull back. Your younger child, a daughter of 7, plays quietly in the corner, occasionally helping her mother sift the flour you've ground, removing any larger pieces of grain that didn't break down completely. This is family work, community work. Everyone contributes what they can. By midday, you've ground enough flour for all 70 loaves. Your arms are tired but strong. Your back aches slightly, but pleasantly, the ache of honest labour. You've mixed 3 large batches of dough, each now rising in covered bowls near the ovens. The first batch, mixed hours ago, has risen substantially. The dough has nearly doubled in size. When you lift the cloth covering it, you can smell the fermentation, that characteristic sour, yeasty, alive smell. It's ready for shaping. You carry the first bowl of risen dough to your workstone. The dough has transformed during its rest. Where it was dense and compact before, it's now light and airy, full of tiny bubbles. You dust the stone lightly with flour and turn the dough out onto it. The dough is soft, pillowy. When you press it gently, it yields, releasing a soft sigh of fermentation gases. You begin dividing the dough into portions for individual loaves. You don't weigh them, you judge by eye, by feel. Years of experience have taught you the right size. Each portion is roughly the size of 2 fists together, about a pound of dough, which will bake into a loaf weighing perhaps 12 ounces after moisture is baked away. Use a flat bronze knife to cut the dough, working quickly but not rushing. Dividing dough is an art. You want each piece to be roughly the same size, so they bake evenly. Cut, portion, set aside. Cut, portion, set aside. The first batch yields about 25 loaves worth of dough. Now for the shaping. Ancient Egyptian bread comes in many forms. Round loaves, oblong loaves, cone-shaped loaves, loaves shaped like animals or geometric patterns. Today, you're making simple round loaves, the everyday bread for the household. You take the first portion of dough and begin working it with your hands. You fold the edges underneath, rotating the dough, creating surface tension. This gives the loaf structure, helps it hold its shape during baking. The motion is gentle but firm. You're not kneading aggressively, just shaping, tucking, smoothing. You rotate the dough. Fold, rotate, fold. The rough cut piece of dough gradually becomes a smooth, round ball. You set it on a wooden board dusted with flour. Then you reach for the next portion. Shape, smooth, set aside. Shape, smooth, set aside. The rhythm is calming. Each loaf takes perhaps 30 seconds to shape properly. You're not rushing, but you're not dawdling either. Just steady, practiced work. Your hands move automatically. Your mind is free to wander. You think about the bread you've eaten in your life. Thousands upon thousands of loaves, bread given to you as a child, bread you learned to make as an apprentice, bread you've sold in the market, bread shared with friends at festivals, bread offered to the gods at temple ceremonies. Bread is the thread that runs through every day of your life, the constant, the reliable. Shape, smooth, set aside. Shape, smooth, set aside. Your son watches you work, observing how your hands move. Later, he'll try shaping some of the loaves from the second batch of dough. For now, he's learning by watching. This is how the craft passes from generation to generation. Not through written instructions, but through observation, practice, repetition. When all the loaves from the first batch are shaped, you cover them with another damp cloth and set them near the ovens for their second rise. This rise will be shorter than the first, perhaps an hour. The loaves will expand slightly, becoming lighter and airier. While they rise, you prepare the ovens for baking. The fires have been burning all morning. The clay walls of the ovens are hot now, very hot. You can feel the heat radiating from them even several feet away. You need to judge the temperature. Too hot, and the bread will burn on the outside before cooking through. Too cool, and it will be dense and heavy. There are no thermometers, of course. You judge by experience, by feel. You hold your hand near the oven opening. The heat is intense. You can hold your hand there for perhaps 3 seconds before it becomes uncomfortable. That's good. That's the right temperature. You use a long wooden paddle, a peel, to sweep out any ash that's accumulated inside the oven. You want a clean baking surface. The ovens are ready. Now, you wait for the bread. You use this time to clean your work area. You scrape the flour and dried dough bits from the workstone. You wash the mixing bowls in a bucket of water. You sweep the floor. A clean workspace is important. Flour and dough can attract insects. Old dough can harbour unwanted bacteria. Regular cleaning keeps the bakery healthy. Your wife prepares a simple meal bread from yesterday. Some cheese made from goat's milk, onions, radishes from the garden. You eat together, the family seated on reed mats in the shade outside the bakery door. The bread is good, crusty outside, soft inside, with that characteristic slight sourness from the fermentation. You never tire of eating bread. It's different every day, affected by temperature, by humidity, by the mood of the yeast. Every loaf is unique. Every loaf is familiar. After eating, you check the shaped loaves. They've risen nicely during your meal. They're puffy, light. When you gently press a loaf with your finger, the indentation slowly springs back. They're ready. It's time to bake. Chapter 4. The baking. 1 hour 15 minutes. -1 hour 45 minutes. Baking bread in ancient Egypt is a delicate dance of timing and temperature. You work with one oven at a time. Using your wooden peel, you carefully lift the first risen loaf and slide it into the oven. The oven is dome-shaped inside. The heat radiates from all directions, from the clay walls, from the bed of hot coals at the bottom. You position the loaf carefully, leaving space around it for heat to circulate. Then you add another loaf, and another. Each oven can hold about 8 loaves comfortably. You fill the first oven, working quickly but carefully. Speed is important. You don't want to lose too much heat while the door is open. Once the oven is loaded, you partially close the opening with a ceramic tile. Not completely closed, you need some airflow for the fire to continue burning, but mostly closed, to contain the heat. Now comes the watching and waiting. Ancient Egyptian ovens bake bread relatively quickly. The intense heat and enclosed space mean a loaf might be done in 15 to 20 minutes. But you must watch carefully. The line between perfectly baked and burnt is thin. You position yourself near the oven, where you can peer through the small opening. Inside, you can see the loaves beginning to transform. The surface, which was pale and soft, begins to firm up. Colour develops from cream to gold to light brown. The loaves expand slightly in the heat, what modern bakers call oven spring. The yeast gives one final burst of activity before the heat kills it. The smell is intoxicating. Fresh bread baking. Is there any better scent in the world? Yeasty, toasty, with hints of nuttiness from the emmer wheat. The smell fills the bakery, drifts out into the street. Passers-by pause, drawn by the aroma. You watch the loaves carefully. You can judge their progress by colour, by scent, by a subtle change in the sound they make, a slight crackling as the crust forms. After about 15 minutes, you check the first loaf. Using the peel, you carefully pull it toward the oven opening. The bottom is golden brown. Good. You tap it with your knuckle, it sounds hollow. The crust is firm. It's done. You pull out all 8 loaves, moving quickly, setting them on a cooling rack made of woven reeds. The bread is too hot to touch with bare hands. The crust crackles and pops as it cools. You can actually hear it settling. Steam rises from the loaves. They're beautiful, round, golden, perfect. Immediately, You load the next batch into the still hot oven. The temperature has dropped slightly with the door open, but it's still hot enough. These loaves might take a minute or two longer. You continue this rhythm for the next several hours. Load the oven. Wait. Watch. Remove. Cool. Load again. The second and third batches of dough have risen and been shaped while the first batch was baking. There's always dough ready, always loaves waiting to go into the oven. Your son helps now, carefully sliding loaves into the ovens under your watchful eye. He's nervous, afraid of burning himself or dropping a loaf, but he does well. Slowly, you tell him. No need to rush, better to be careful than fast. He nods, concentrating intensely on positioning the loaf just right. You remember being his age, learning this same skill from your father-in-law, the nervousness, the fear of making mistakes, the gradual building of confidence. The bread-making cycle continues, batch after batch, loaf after loaf. The bakery is hot now, very hot. The multiple ovens, burning for hours, have raised the temperature considerably. Sweat runs down your face, your back. But you're used to it. This is summer baking in Egypt. The heat is part of the work. You pause occasionally to drink water from a ceramic cup. The water is warm, there's no ice, no refrigeration, but it's wet and it helps. Your wife tends to the cooling loaves, arranging them on racks, keeping count. 20 loaves for the noble's household, 30 for the servants, 20 for market sale. By mid-afternoon, all 70 loaves are baked. They cool on racks, filling the bakery with their presence. The sight of them is satisfying, the fruit of a day's labour, sustenance for dozens of people. You allow yourself a moment to simply stand and look at them. 70 perfect loaves, golden brown, crusty, beautiful. Each one made by your hands, each one containing hours of work grinding, mixing, kneading, shaping, baking. This is your craft, your contribution to the community, your purpose. The nobles and servants will eat this bread with their evening meal. The market customers will buy loaves for their families. The bread will be broken, shared, consumed. And tomorrow, you'll wake before dawn and begin again. Because the work of a baker is never finished. As long as people need bread, and people always need bread, there is work to do. Not every day is 70 loaves of simple round bread. The baker's craft includes variety, specialty, adaptation. Let's talk about the different types of bread made in ancient Egypt. The shapes, the flavours, the purposes. The most common bread is what you've been making, simple round loaves of emmer wheat, leavened with your starter. This is daily bread, everyday bread, the bread of life. But there are many variations. Sometimes you make flat bread unleavened. This is quicker to produce, no rising time needed. You simply mix flour and water into a dough, roll it flat, and bake it quickly on a hot stone or the side of the oven. Flat bread cooks in minutes rather than hours. It's useful when bread is needed quickly or when you're running low on starter and don't want to deplete it further. The texture is different from risen bread, denser, chewier, but still satisfying, especially when fresh and warm. You also make barley bread occasionally. Barley is less common than emmer wheat. It's considered slightly inferior, food for servants and workers rather than nobles. But it grows well in poorer soil, so it's often cheaper. Barley bread is denser, darker, with a more pronounced nutty flavour. It doesn't rise as well as wheat bread because barley contains less gluten, but many people prefer it, especially when toasted. For special occasions, festivals, offerings to the gods, gifts to important visitors, you make sweetened bread. You add honey to the dough, and sometimes dates or figs. The honey feeds the yeast beautifully, creating a vigorous rise. The bread is sweeter, richer, more luxurious. Sometimes you shape these special loaves into elaborate forms, spirals, braids, shapes representing sacred animals, ibises, crocodiles, scarab beetles. These decorative loaves take time and skill to shape. You work the dough carefully, forming intricate patterns, ensuring the shapes hold during baking. The nobles particularly appreciate these artistic breads. They're conversation pieces at feasts, demonstrations of the baker's skill. Another specialty, beer bread. In ancient Egypt, beer and bread are closely related. In fact, they're often made together from the same basic ingredients. For beer bread, you shape the dough into loaves, but deliberately underbake them. The interior remains moist, almost doughy. These loaves are then broken up and mixed with water in large jars. The moisture and remaining starches ferment, creating beer. It's a clever dual use of grain. The same dough that makes bread can also make beer, the second staple of the Egyptian diet. You make beer bread regularly. It's part of many workers' wages. Bread and beer together provide calories, nutrition, and a mild alcoholic content that makes questionable water safer to drink. There's also travelers' bread loaves baked extra hard and dry. They don't taste as good as fresh bread, but they keep for weeks without spoiling. Merchants, soldiers, and travelers rely on this hard bread for journeys. You make travelers' bread by baking loaves once normally, then again at lower heat for extended time. The double baking drives out all moisture, leaving a rock-hard loaf that's nearly indestructible. To eat it, you have to soak it in water or beer to soften it. But it won't mold, won't spoil, won't attract insects. It's survival food. During festival times, you might make hundreds of special loaves. The entire bakery becomes dedicated to preparing for the celebration. For the festival of Opet, for example, you'd make offering bread shaped like pyramids to be given to the temple. For harvest festivals, bread shaped like sheaves of wheat. These festival times are exhausting days of non-stop baking, the ovens burning around the clock, but they're also exciting. The entire community comes together. There's music, celebration, shared purpose, and your bread is part of it all. Let me walk you through making one of these special loaves, a braided bread, sweetened with honey, for a noble's feast. You begin with your usual dough, but you add honey during the mixing stage, perhaps a quarter cup of honey for every 3 cups of flour. The honey changes the dough's character. It's stickier, sweeter smelling. The yeast loves the extra sugar. The dough rises enthusiastically. After the first rise, you divide the dough into 3 equal portions. You roll each portion into a long rope, about 18 inches long and an inch thick. Then you lay the 3 ropes side by side and begin braiding them, just like braiding hair. Over, under, over, under. You work from one end to the other, keeping the braid tight and even. When you reach the end, you pinch the ropes together and tuck them under. The result is beautiful, a braided loaf with visual appeal and texture. The honey glaze you'll brush on before baking will give it a golden sheen. You let the braided loaf rise for its second rise, then carefully transfer it to the oven. It bakes slower than regular bread. The honey can burn if the heat is too intense. You watch it carefully, rotating it if one side is browning faster than another. The smell is incredible. Honey caramelizing, bread baking, sweet and toasty. When it emerges from the oven, it's a work of art. Golden, glossy, intricate. The noble will be pleased. These special breads remind you why you love this work. Yes, most days are simple loaves, repetitive work, but the craft has depth, complexity, room for creativity and skill. Let's step back and look at the daily rhythm of a baker's life in ancient Egypt, the cycle that repeats, day after day, season after season. You wake before dawn. Always. The bakery needs tending early. Your first task is checking the ovens. If you've kept coals burning overnight, You feed them. If they've gone out, you restart the fire, a tedious process involving flint, steel, and dry tinder. Once the fire is going, you begin grinding grain. This is the foundation of everything. Without flour, there's no bread. The grinding takes hours. Even with help from your son, even with multiple sets of grinding stones, it's time-consuming, physical work. Around mid-morning, you begin mixing dough. You take starter from your jar, add flour and water, knead until smooth. The dough rises while you continue grinding more grain, mixing more batches. By midday, you're shaping loaves and beginning to bake. The afternoon is dominated by baking. Load the oven, wait, remove, cool, over and over. By late afternoon, the day's bread is baked and cooling. You deliver loaves to the noble's household. You set aside loaves for tomorrow's market. The evening is for cleaning and preparation. You clean the work surfaces. You feed your starter. You grind grain for tomorrow. You bank the oven's fires for the night. You return home as the sun sets. Your family shares a meal bread, of course, along with whatever vegetables, cheese, or occasionally fish is available. After dinner, perhaps an hour of relaxation, conversation with your wife, playing with the children, simple pleasures. Then sleep. The deep, dreamless sleep of physical exhaustion. And the next morning, you wake before dawn and begin again. This daily rhythm varies slightly with the seasons. In summer, when the heat is intense, you try to do the heavy work grinding and mixing in the cooler morning hours. The baking, which generates enormous heat, you save for afternoon when it's already hot anyway. In winter, when mornings are cool, you appreciate the warmth of the ovens. The bakery is a pleasant place to work when the rest of the village is shivering. During the Nile's flood season, Aket, when the river rises and covers the fields, grain is abundant. You can make extra bread, sell more in the market. During Shomu, the dry season, grain becomes more precious. You're careful not to waste any. Every grain of flour is accounted for. The rhythm also varies with the festivals and holy days that punctuate the Egyptian calendar. During the festival of Min, the harvest god, you make extra bread as offerings. The entire community celebrates the successful harvest. During the festival of the valley, when the living honor the dead, you make special funerary bread loaves, shaped like cones, meant to be left at tombs as offerings. During the pharaoh's jubilee, the entire country celebrates. Bakeries work overtime, producing thousands of extra loaves for the feasts. These festivals break up the routine, add variety and celebration to the daily work. But mostly, it's the same rhythm, the same tasks, the same honest, necessary labour. Some might find this repetitive, boring, but you find it comforting. There's peace in knowing what each day will bring, in having work that's always needed, in mastering a craft so thoroughly that your hands know what to do without conscious thought. You find meditation in the grinding, in the kneading, in the patient watching of bread baking. Each loaf is both unique and familiar. The same process produces infinite variations. No two loaves are ever exactly identical. They are affected by temperature, humidity, the mood of the yeast, tiny variations in technique. Yet they're all bread, all sustenance, all the result of your labour and skill. Sometimes, on quiet afternoons, when the baking is done and you're alone in the bakery, you reflect on the larger meaning of your work. You're part of an ancient tradition. Humans have been making bread for thousands of years. Your techniques, your tools, your methods, they connect you to countless generations of bakers stretching back into the mists of time. And they stretch forward too. Your son is learning the craft. He'll teach it to his children. The tradition continues. You're also part of your community's survival. The bread you make feeds families, gives them strength for their work, sustains children as they grow. Without bakers, the community would struggle. Bread is that fundamental. There's honor in this work, dignity, purpose. You don't make bread for glory or fame. You make it because people need to eat, because it's your skill, because it's what you do. And in the doing, in the daily repetition of grinding, mixing, kneading, baking, you find a kind of peace. This is your place in the world, your contribution to the great cycle of planting and harvesting, of grain and flour, of hunger and satisfaction. You're a baker. It's simple, it's profound. And as the sun sets on another day, as you bank the fires and clean the stones and prepare for tomorrow, you feel that quiet satisfaction that comes from work well done. The bread is baked, the community is fed. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. This is the life of an ancient Egyptian baker, not glamorous, not exciting, but deeply, fundamentally important. And in its own way, beautiful. Let's talk about what happens to bread after it's baked, how it's stored, how it's preserved, how it makes its way from your bakery to the tables of those who will eat it. Fresh bread is best, of course. The loaves you bake in the afternoon will be eaten that evening or the next morning. The crust is still crisp. The interior is still soft. The flavour is at its peak. But bread for market, or bread meant to last several days, requires different handling. You have a storage room in the bakery, a cool, dry space with thick mud brick walls that insulate against the heat. Inside, wooden shelves line the walls. You arrange the cooled loaves on these shelves, spacing them so air can circulate. Crowding loaves together can trap moisture, leading to mould. The storage room has small, high windows covered with woven reed screens. These allow airflow while keeping out insects and dust. In Egypt's dry climate, bread keeps reasonably well for several days. The low humidity means mould is less of a problem than in wetter regions. Even so, bread stales. The crust softens. The interior becomes drier, tougher. After 3 or 4 days, bread that was perfect when fresh becomes increasingly hard and unappetizing. But there are uses for stale bread. Nothing is wasted in ancient Egypt. Slightly stale bread can be refreshed. You sprinkle it with water and reheat it briefly in the oven. The moisture and heat soften it again, restoring some of its original texture. Very stale bread can be broken into pieces and soaked in water or milk, creating a kind of porridge. This is common breakfast food, often sweetened with honey or dates. Stale bread can also be used in cooking. Crushed into crumbs, it thickens stews and sauces. Mixed with vegetables and herbs, it becomes stuffing. The hardest, driest bread too far gone for human consumption goes to animals. The baker's donkey, the household's chickens, even the street dogs. They're less particular than humans. For longer-term storage, you make the traveller's bread I mentioned earlier. Baked hard and dry, it keeps for weeks or even months. You also make a kind of breadcrumb. You take broken or misshapen loaves, the ones that won't sell well in the market, and dry them completely in a very low oven. Then you grind them into coarse crumbs using the same stones you use for grain. These breadcrumbs store almost indefinitely in sealed jars. When needed, they can be reconstituted with water or used as a coating for fish and vegetables before frying. The nobles you serve have special requirements for their bread. They expect fresh loaves twice daily, morning and evening. You deliver these personally, carrying them in a large basket lined with clean linen. The servant's bread can be a day old, still good, but not quite as fresh. This is part of the hierarchy. The wealthy eat the best. Everyone else eats what they can afford. Market bread is sold the same day it's baked, or at most, the next day. You have a small stall in the market where your wife or daughter sells loaves each morning. Customers know your bread. They know it's well made, properly leavened, baked to perfection. You have regular customers who buy from you weekly. The price of bread fluctuates based on grain prices. After a good harvest, when grain is plentiful, bread is cheap. In lean years, when grain is scarce, bread becomes more expensive. But it's never too expensive for most people to afford some bread. It's the staple, the fundamental food. Even in hard times, people find a way to buy bread. You're paid partly in grain, partly in trade goods, partly in small copper pieces that serve as a kind of currency. The noble, whose household you serve, provides you with a monthly ration of grain. This both compensates you for your work and ensures you have raw materials for baking. It's a good arrangement. You have steady work, steady income, a valuable skill. In the slow evening hours, after the day's work is done, you sometimes reflect on the economics of bread. Grain becomes flour, flour becomes bread, bread becomes sustenance, sustenance becomes labour, labour becomes wealth, wealth buys grain. It's a cycle, a circle, and you're part of it. Your labour adds value. You take raw grain, worth perhaps a few copper pieces, and transform it through your skill into bread worth several times that amount. The difference between the value of grain and the value of bread that's your compensation, that's what feeds your family. It's fair, honest. You provide real value, real skill. And beyond the economics, there's the simple satisfaction of making something with your hands, of taking raw materials and creating something useful, something necessary, something good. As night falls, you make your final rounds of the bakery. You check that the ovens are properly banked. You ensure the storage room is secure against mice and insects. You cover the grinding stones to keep them clean. You take a piece of bread from the day's baking, a slightly misshapen loaf that won't sell but is perfectly good to eat. You'll take it home for your family's breakfast tomorrow. You lock the bakery door behind you and walk home through the quiet village streets. Above, the stars are brilliant. The same stars that have watched over Egyptian bakers for thousands of years. The same stars that will watch over bakers thousands of years into the future, long after your name and your bakery are forgotten. But the work will continue. As long as humans exist, they'll need bread, and bakers will make it. You are part of that eternal chain, that ancient craft, that fundamental human necessity. And tomorrow, you'll wake before dawn and begin again, grinding grain, mixing dough, kneading, shaping, baking. The rhythm continues. The bread rises. Life goes on. This is the way of the baker. This is how ancient Egyptians made bread. Every single step, every patient hour, every skilled motion. From grain to loaf, from darkness to dawn, from hunger to satisfaction. This is the story of bread, the story of civilization, the story of human hands working with the earth's bounty to create sustenance. It's a simple story, an ancient story, a story that continues even today, in bakeries around the world. The tools have changed, the techniques have evolved, but the fundamentals remain. Flour, water, yeast, time, heat, skill. These are the elements of bread, the eternal ingredients. And in their combination, in the patient working of dough, in the transformation that happens in the oven's heat, there's something almost magical, something that connects us to our most ancient ancestors, to the first humans who discovered that grain could be ground, mixed with water, and baked into something wonderful. We are all children of bread, all descendants of those first bakers. And so, as we close this journey through an ancient Egyptian bakery, as we watch our baker lock his door and walk home under the stars, we can feel grateful. Grateful for bread, for bakers, for the simple, profound gift of sustenance. Sleep well. Dream of warm loaves and the smell of baking, of patient hands and ancient skills. And tomorrow, when you eat your breakfast bread, remember, this is how it was made. This is how it's always been made. With time, with care, with skill passed down through countless generations. This is the bread of life, the staff of existence, the gift of grain transformed. Good night, rest well, and sweet dreams. And that's where we'll leave our ancient Egyptian baker tonight, walking home through the quiet streets, his work done for the day, his bread baked and delivered. Tomorrow will bring the same tasks, the same rhythm, but there's comfort in that repetition, in knowing what needs to be done and how to do it well. I hope this journey through the bread-making process has helped you relax, that the slow, methodical work, the grinding, the kneading, the patient watching has eased you into a calmer state. If you enjoyed this, you might like other videos exploring ancient daily life. Perhaps we'll visit a Roman bathhouse next, or spend time with a medieval scribe. For now, though, the rest. Let the images settle in your mind. The sound of stone grinding grain, the smell of fresh bread baking, the satisfaction of work completed. May your sleep be deep and dreamless. Good night.